Hi, this is Danielle Daws for the Alleyway Stamps. I'm showcasing a stamp set today called Holiday Sparkles, which is a special release stamp set that's only available throughout December, so make sure you head to the website to find out all the details. I'm also going to be using a product called Flocking Powder by Wow Embossing Powder, and it gives a really nice velvety finish instead of the shiny embossed finish. It's a really interesting kind of look. So I've used some temporary adhesive to stick my tag down onto just some spare white card. That's so that I make sure that I can keep my fingers right away when I use my heat gun in a moment. So it's the same kind of process as embossing, a little bit more involved, but you start off with Versamark like you do with embossing. But instead of embossing powder, I'm going to be using a heat and stick powder. You can also use glue or a glue pad. I didn't have any of that on hand, but I did have some of the Stampin' Bond powder, so that's what I'm going to use. It just looks like white embossing powder, but it will melt clear and be sticky. Now from this point onwards until the flock is done, you do need to work quite quickly. So heat this. I'd try and make sure that my heat gun is already on a good temperature before even putting it on the cardstock. And from here you need to put your flock on. So I'm using jet black flock. And you'll see right here it's quite messy, and I'm just going to use my fingers to make sure that I press down firmly to get all of those fibres adhering to the heat and stick powder. So this is the bit that's very different to embossing. In a moment I'm going to tap off the excess and then heat it again to set it. But that's essentially it. You might find that there are a couple of fibres left over in between the images. I just use my finger to brush those away, or you could use a fine brush. But once you've heated it again, it is there to stay. So you noticed earlier I used some temporary adhesive to stick my tag down, and the reason I used that is because, well, it's temporary, but it also just rolls off, as you can see me rubbing with my finger and getting that off, and that's just a really useful adhesive to have. So now I'm going to adhere it properly to my backing tag. I have cut out a black tag that's only slightly larger than my craft one, and just adhering that on. Now because even though it's all set nice and firmly on the front with the flock, I will still do something that I usually do with embossing, which is to turn that tag over to make sure that I get that adhering properly. It's just one of the little things that I do. So I've got a sentiment here that I'm going to adhere with some foam dots, but I've got some black foam dots. These are zap dots, and I really love being able to have black foam pads to put my sentiment on, because as you can see I really don't have much white on this tag, and I really don't want to have the white just peeking out from underneath there. So the black foam dots really do come in handy. So I'm just placing my sentiments there at the moment, as you can see, making sure it's all centered. And then I'll get on to the very final bit, which is adding the ribbon over the side. So I've punched a hole, and I'm just using some satin ribbon here, some thin black satin ribbon, to make my tag. I decided that the satin would offset the flock nicely. So I'm just putting that through nice and simply. As you can see, there's really not much to that. And that's my tag. So I hope you enjoy looking at the flocking powder. I think it's a fantastic product, and make sure you get your hands on that stamp set. Thanks for watching.